तस्मै ब्रह्मदेवमात्मने बुद्धिप्रकाशम् मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्या सम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशर्षिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितप्रज्ञानघनप्रत्यगतो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ॐ नारायणं पद्मभवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमतास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमतास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं सन्तोषकं वाटिककारमन्यानस्मद्गुरुं सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः।
The first 5 verses of Dakshinamurti Stotra, that's also what we should chant. At the end, the last 5 verses. ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरे तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतम् पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया वैवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यत्साक्षात्कृते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतम् मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यमिमः योगीव यस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये यस्यैव स्फुरणं सदात्मकमसत्कल्पार्थकं भासते साक्षात् तत्त्वमसीति वेदवचसा यो बोधयत्याश्रितान् यत्साक्षात्करणात् भवेन्न पुनरावृत्तिर्भवाम्भोनिधौ तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नानाच्छिद्रकठोदरस्थितमहादीपप्रभाभास्वरम् ज्ञानयस्य चक्षुरादिकरणद्वारा बहिस्पन्दते जानामीति तमेव भान्तमनुभात्येतत्समस्तं जगतः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये देहं प्राणमपीन्द्रियाण्यविचलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः श्रीबालाङ्गजलोपमास्त्वमिति भ्रान्ता वृषं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमहाव्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः।
Dakshinamurtaye.
Vedanta, as you know, basically consists of three fundamental texts. The first set of texts is Upanishad, which is what we call are the revealed texts, which is what we call the source books or the Pramana, meaning the valid means of knowledge for revealing the identity between Jiva and Brahma. So Jiva Brahma Aikyam, something which cannot be known through any other available means of knowledge. The means of knowledge available at our disposal are the five organs of perception with which we gain the knowledge of the various objects of the world. This is called pratyaksha or perception, is the first means of knowledge. Second is what we call inference or anumana, like inferring the presence of fire when we perceive smoke, because there is a vyapti or an invariable relationship between the fire and smoke. So wherever there is smoke, there must be fire, and therefore when we perceive smoke, we infer the presence of fire. This is called anumanam, inference. And then other arthapatti, meaning presumption, upama, meaning comparison, anupalabdhi, absence, and shabda, the words. These are supposed to be the six means of knowledge available at our disposal, with which we gain various forms of knowledge in our life. But all of these means of knowledge can only reveal something which has perception as a base. Like upama, comparison. When you say that this bison is like buffalo, so bison is an animal which you have not seen, buffalo is an animal that you have seen. So someone says bison is like buffalo. But buffalo also is something that is perceived. And when I see an animal that is similar to buffalo, then I presume or I find that this must be bison. This is how I come to know by comparison, upamanam. Or we say arthapatti, so presumption. That Devadatta, a very famous example, is found to observe fast during the day, and still we find that the Devadatta is putting on weight. So even though he is observing fast, he is putting on weight. Therefore we presume that the fellow must be eating at night, So since he is not eating during day and still is putting on weight, he must be eating at night. Otherwise he cannot put on weight. So arthapatti, anyatha, anupatti. But that also has perception as the basis. Absence. That the absence of something also is a pramanam. That there is no part in my palm. So that is how by absence also you come to know that something is not there. Which also requires perception. The idea is that whatever, even shabda, the words, when we hear description of some place or some person, then from that description we form an idea in our mind. And so shabda or the words generally give us what we call paroksha or indirect knowledge. If I give the description of a place called Disney World, for example, or whatever it is, then if you haven't seen that place, then from my words you will gain some kind of a knowledge. You will have a certain picture in your mind, but certainly it is not direct knowledge, but there is some kind of a knowledge involved because you have trust in the words of the person who describes that. So shabda, that also becomes pramanam. So these are the six means of knowledge we have, all of which are based on perception, because even through the words when we form a picture in our mind, that also is a basis on what I have seen. If I describe to you a building called the World Trade Center, then I'll describe in the terms of the words that are known to you and to me, and from that you will form a certain picture about that building in your mind. It's like a matchbox, or suppose, two matchboxes, erected. Then you get an idea of how those buildings must be. But that also has a basis on perception. But how about those things which cannot be perceived, or those which are beyond perception? Apaurusha vishaya, for that there is what we call atindriya vishaya, I mean those objects or things which cannot become the object of perception through the sense organs. For them Vedas are considered the pramanam, the means of knowledge. And of that also the identity between Jiva and Brahma, that I am Brahman, I am limitless. or I am what I am seeking in my life. The identity between the seeker and the sought. That the Shastra that reveals that is Vedanta. In that particular aspect, revealing that particular subject, there is no other means of knowledge available to us except Upanishad. Because Upanishad is the texts that are revealed, not composed. So Rishis are what we call the Drashtaraha. So they are the seers of the texts of the Upanishad, the mantras of the Upanishads, which are revealed to them, the mantras which are already there. But then they are revealed to the Rishis because of their tuning up on account of their austerities, tapasya, yoga, etc. They attain a certain very subtle state of mind in which they can perceive these mantras. So Upanishad is then the pramanam or the valid means of knowledge for the knowledge of the nature of Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. Who am I? Is there God? What's the nature of God? And what is the truth of this creation? When it comes to these subjects, Upanishad is the pramanam. Of course, Upanishad also is called Shabda in the form of words. Except that in this particular case, words give us what we call immediate knowledge. In general, words give us only indirect knowledge. Because words give us a knowledge of something which we do not know. When I give you a description of an object that you do not know, then you form a picture in your mind, and that is how indirectly you know, paroksha jnana. However, when it comes to the knowledge of something or someone who is in front of me, sannihita vishaya, the object of knowledge is something that is in proximity, then the words give us what we call immediate knowledge. Like Soyam Devadattaha, or this fellow is Krishnamurti. Swami Dayananda had this experience actually, that when Swami was traveling from Delhi to Dehradun in a plane, then a Britisher also was traveling there, and they just started talking, They were talking for about half an hour. And then Swamiji asked him, so what for are you going to Mussoorie? He says, well, I am going to listen to Swami Dayananda, And so he was talking to Swamiji for half an hour, not knowing who he was talking to. Then Swamiji says, Soyam Dayananda. So Soham Dayananda. I am that Dayananda you want to listen to. And that's how that man came to know. From the words, he came to know Swamiji directly. So when the object is in front of you or already known to you, but you do not recognize. So when the object, some peculiar case, when what I want to know is something already known to me but not recognized, in that case, words give us recognition, and that is how they give us the direct knowledge. Thus, the person is in front of me. I know the person in general, but I do not know in particular. So where Samanya Jnanam is there, but Vishesha Jnanam is not there, in general I know something, in particular I do not know. Thus that man knows the person as some kind of a Swami or some strange looking person. He knows the one who is talking to is a person. So Samanya Jnanam or general knowledge is there. However, that this person is so and so, that Vishesha Jnanam is not there. When this peculiar condition obtains, then Shabda or the words give us immediate knowledge. How about Brahman? Can words give us immediate knowledge about Brahma? If Brahma or God were an object or were a principle that was away from me, separated from me in time, or that means I can see him only after death, or separated from me in place, then I must travel to some place like Kailasa to see him, or separated from me in terms of condition, that I must become something in order to see him. In that case, words can only give me indirect knowledge. Words cannot give me direct knowledge because God at the moment is not the object of knowledge for me. However, Vedanta reveals that God is not something away from you. God is your very self. Meaning what I am constantly experiencing is God. What I am constantly experiencing is Brahman. Then how come I do not know? I do not recognize. I do not recognize that what I am constantly experiencing or what I am is Brahman. How come I do not know? Because I have misconceptions or erroneous notions about who I am. And so not only I do not know my true nature, but then I take myself to be different from what I am. Just as in a famous example, I do not know that this object is rope. Not only that, but I take that object to be snake, then there is error being committed. Then if someone points out to me that this is not the snake, this is rope, by perhaps throwing a torch right there, then there is an immediate knowledge of that object. So in this case also, Atma is already known to me, and Atma alone happens to be Brahman or God. And therefore, Brahman is not away from me at all the times, at all the places, under all conditions, it is known to me, except that it is not recognized. And therefore, Shruti or the Upanishad provides a recognition, Tattvamasi, that thou art. Look at yourself closely. You have just taken for granted as to who you are. You have never really set to think of what you are. We just take ourselves for granted. That this body I am, this mind I am, this intellect I am, this upadhi I am. And we have never sat down to think, how can I be this body? This body, which is something that is known to me clearly as the part is known to me. If I am not the part which is object of knowledge, how can I be the body? And so also, the emotions of the mind are also very well known to me. All my thoughts are also very well known to me. How can I be this mind? How can I be this intellect, which is an object of knowledge? Something that I know as something that is object of knowledge, and I am the knower. How can a knower be the known? In this manner, when Viveka is done, Atma, Anatma, Viveka, or the discriminative inquiry and knowledge with reference to self and non-self, this is what the Upanishads direct our attention to, then the true nature of Atma can be known. So, the reason that we entertain variety of notions about ourselves is because we have never really thought about ourselves. Not only that, but then I already have erroneous notions or conclusions about myself. I think that I know who I am, so I don't even think there is a need to know myself. So Atma is already known to me. Atma alone is Brahman that I am seeking in my life, except that I do not know that, and not only that, why I entertain erroneous notions about that. And that is where the words of Upanishads, they dispel these notions and enable me to see or recognize the true nature of myself. And in this particular case, where the Samanya Jnanam is there, that I am, and that I am conscious, but the Vishesha Jnanam, the particular knowledge that I am Brahman, that is not there. That I am limitless or a complete being, that knowledge is not there. And so that peculiar case of having the Samanya Jnanam but not having the Vishesha Jnanam is satisfied in case of Atma also, and therefore words give us what we call immediate knowledge, Aparoksha Jnanam. And that is what the words of the Upanishads do. They give us, that's why anything that gives you knowledge is called Pramanam. Pramakaranam, Pramanam. Anything that produces knowledge is called Pramanam. Like the eyes are the Pramanam for the knowledge of colors, or the ears are the Pramanam for the knowledge of sounds, and so also words of Upanishads become Pramanam for the knowledge of Atma, which is Brahman. And therefore, Upanishads are the source books. So that's the first fundamental text of Vedanta, of Hinduism or Vedanta. Then the second text, this is called Shruti, because they are texts which are heard or revealed. So they are called Shruti. So this is called Shruti Prasthanam. Now based on the Upanishads and the Vedas, expressing the essence of the Upanishads is the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvopanishado Gavha Dogdha Gopalanandana Partho Vatsaha Sudhir Bhokta Dogdhan Gita Amritam Mahat. When the Upanishads can be compared to the cows, and Lord Krishna is the Gopalanandana, the cowherd boy, Arjuna is a calf for whose benefit the milk, the cows are milked, and the people with pure heart are those who enjoy that milk. So Bhagavad Gita is that great milk, the immortal milk from the cows of the Upanishads. And so as Shankaracharya describes, Bhagavad Gita is the very essence of the entire Veda. Sarva Veda Sara Sangraha Bhutaha. It is the essence of the entire Vedas, is Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita also is considered to be a Pramana Grantha or valid text. Even though it does not form, it doesn't come in the category of Shruti, because it is not part of Veda, but still it is given the same kind of a status as Shruti. And therefore, at the end we always say, Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu, because Bhagavad Gita also is given the status of Upanishadsu. There are so many Upanishads are there. As many chapters, some people say as many verses or whatever, but there are so many Upanishads. So Bhagavad Gita also is given the status of Upanishads because of the one who teaches Bhagavad Gita, because it is Lord Narayana himself in the form of Lord Krishna who taught this text, and therefore it is also given the status of Pramana. So Bhagavad Gita forms the second part of this Prasthanatrayi. Thus we have these three texts, what you may call canonical texts, means like the Bible is for the Christians, or Quran maybe for the Islam, and so also these three are the texts which form the Prasthanam, with which you start and with which you achieve something. So Prasthanatrayi, these three, the fundamental or canonical texts. And first is what we call the Upanishads, second is Bhagavad Gita, which is not Shruti but Smriti. So Upanishads are what we call Shruti Prasthanam, and then Bhagavad Gita is Smriti Prasthanam. And third is this Brahma Sutra. Because the Upanishads are the texts which are not very easy to understand for people whose mind is not prepared. It was quite alright for the students to whom those texts were revealed. For the students who were pure-minded. Drishyaretu agraya buddhya sukshmaya sukshma buddhivihi. So those people who have made their mind single-pointed with upasana and also made very sukshma on account of the study of the scriptures and contemplation upon them. So those who possess that kind of mind, for them Upanishads are quite adequate to understand the purport of them. But for most people it is not. In fact, there are so many apparently contradictory statements of the Upanishads which create a lot of confusion in our mind and create many doubts. So study of the Upanishads create many doubts in the mind of the students, and these doubts must be resolved. Unless these doubts are resolved, it would not be possible for us to really make use of the Upanishads as a Pramanam. Because when can the words become Pramanam? Only when they are properly understood, not otherwise. So if the words are understood, if the student understands, the listener understands the words in the same manner in which they are meant to be revealed by the speaker, then alone the communication is complete, and then alone there is a proper communication. So words, when they become pramana or valid means of knowledge, then one has to be extremely careful about what the words mean. What is the context? What is the intention of the speaker? And therefore, there is a whole scripture here which spends a lot of time in analyzing how the words create knowledge. That's called Shabda Bodha. How Shabda or the words create knowledge. There's a lot of discussion on that. But basically the words will create proper knowledge. It will create some kind of knowledge, but we don't know whether it will create the knowledge which is intended by the speaker. Words will create right knowledge or true knowledge only when the listener understands them as they are revealed by the teacher. And if the words leave some doubt, create doubts or create misunderstandings, then the communication does not serve the purpose. In fact, it may just create the opposite effect. There can be samshaya, there can be viparyaya, there can be doubts, and there can be wrong interpretations of the words. Because whoever listens to words has to interpret them. There is an intellect involved there, which interprets the words, and that is how the knowledge takes place. An intellect has certain ways of interpretation. And if the words that are told, they contradict the method in which the intellect interprets, then all kinds of confusions and doubts will be created. So it is necessary to resolve the doubts, the possible doubts that can arise in the study of the Upanishads. What is the Tatparya, or what is the purport of this Upanishad? What they reveal, Brahma or something else? Is that Brahman something that is my own nature or something different from me? Can that Brahman be known directly or it can only be known indirectly? Can Brahman be known when I am in this body or can it be known only when I die? Should Brahman be known now or do I have to reach some place in order to know Brahman? All these different questions are there, and Upanishads may provide us a variety of statements by which any one of these interpretations may be possible. And therefore came along Badarayana, who composed this what we call Brahma Sutras, in order to give us the insight or the vision of the Upanishads. What is the Tatparya? What is the purport of the Upanishads? What is the vision of the Upanishads? Jiva Brahma Aikyam. The Jiva or the individual self himself is Brahman. That is the Tatparya or purport of the Upanishads. And all the Upanishads all of them agree in revealing this vision. There is no disagreement in the Upanishads. This is a very important principle of Vedanta. That's called Samanvaya. Samanvaya means there is Ekavakyada, Samanvaya, consistency. That all the Upanishads only talk about Brahman and nothing else. And all the Upanishads only reveal one truth, that Jiva is none other than Brahman. And so Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmevana Aparah. That Brahman is Satyam or truth, that Jagat is Mithya, and that Jiva is none other than Brahman. That this is what all the Upanishads seek to reveal. That even though Upanishads talk about creation very elaborately, the intention is not to give reality to the creation, intention is only to reveal that the effect is not separate from the cause. That cause is Brahman and the creation is effect, and that effect is not separate from cause, and therefore whatever there is Brahman alone. That is the intention of discussing or describing the creation. Because otherwise we might feel from the description of Upanishads that creation is something real, because Upanishads describe it so elaborately. Then we require the teacher to tell us. That's why Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam Tadvijnanartham Sagurumeva Vigachet Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. So one must go to a teacher who is Shrotriya. Shrotriya means Sampradayavit, one who has the knowledge of Sampradaya, one who has the knowledge of the methodology, one who has the Brahmanishtam means one who has a vision of the scriptures and who abides in the scriptural vision, at the same time one who knows the methodology of communication. And so that's why Badarayana fulfills that role for us. He is a teacher who tells us what is the purport of the Upanishads and why. So first of all there is Samanvaya, that all the Upanishads only seek to reveal the knowledge, the subject matter of all the Upanishads is Brahman, and that all the Upanishads seek to reveal that Jiva alone is Brahman, and that can be so only when the duality is false. Because if the world were real, and Brahman being the cause of the creation were separate from me, then certainly I cannot be Brahman, therefore then duality will be the truth. If non-duality is the truth of life, then the duality that we experience cannot be real. Nehananasti kinchana. And so Upanishads all the time seek to reveal the falsehood, the falsity of duality. That Dvaitam is mithya, even though we experience it, it is still mithya. And in this, all the Upanishads are consistent. And Upanishads are consistent in other ways also. What is the role of Upasana? What's the role of these meditations? There is consistency in the meditations. Also, what is the nature of Jivan Mukta or Jivan Mukta? Meaning the one who is liberated, well there also they are consistent. Whether it is Jivan Mukti or there is only Videha Mukti. Should this knowledge be gained when I am in this body, or it should be gained after I die? And after gaining the knowledge, do I remain alive or do I die? So there also, there is Jivan Mukti. There also, all the Upanishads are consistent. And there are any number of doubts, which are minor doubts also, which are all raised, and they are all resolved in Brahma Sutras. And therefore, study of the Brahma Sutra is absolutely essential. There, the teacher here, the Acharya, Badarayana, provides us what we call the yukti or the logic or the nyaya, the reason. Why is it so? Why do you say this is so? Then every time a hetu or the reason is given. Tattu samanvayat, because it is samanvaya. Therefore we say that Brahma is the Vishaya or subject matter of all the Upanishads. Shastra yonitvat, why do you say that Brahman is the cause of the creation? Because that is what the Shastra says. So Shastra yonitvat, because Shastra is the yoni or that which reveals what's the nature of Brahman, and therefore we say that Brahman is the subject matter of Shastra. So that is fifth case, hetu is given. So every time nyaya is given. So this is called nyaya grantha or nyaya prasthanam. There is shruti prasthanam, smruti and nyaya. So Brahma Sutras are all based on nyaya or reasoning. And so it is necessary to provide us adequate reasoning or adequate intellectual arguments in order to resolve all the doubts, because doubts are always in the intellect. And only when the doubts are resolved, only when we have a consistent understanding of the purport of the Upanishad, that those words will become pramanam, otherwise not. The words will become valid means of knowledge only when they create a knowledge which is free from doubt and error. If there are so many doubts, if all kinds of doubts are created in our mind, words do not serve the purpose. If words create erroneous knowledge, they do not serve the purpose. If they create only vague knowledge, they do not serve the purpose. They must create clear knowledge, free from doubt and free from error. So wherever possibility of doubts and errors are there, all those mantras are taken up for discussion in Brahma Sutra and their doubts are all resolved. So Brahma Sutra, as you will find, is sutra, of which the subject matter is Brahma. That's why it's called Brahma Sutra. Sutra, as you know, is a thread. So thread is there in which all the flowers are threaded, and that's how we have beautiful garland. So Brahma Sutra also is a beautiful garland. Each sutra is like a thread that passes through a flower. And what's that flower? Flower is none other than the various beautiful mantras from the Upanishads. If Upanishads can be compared to a garden, and very beautiful flowers in the form of mantras are there, some of those chosen mantras are plucked by the teacher, and a beautiful garland is composed here, made for us, that is called Brahma Sutra. And therefore we will find that each sutra passes through a flower of mantra, meaning each sutra has a given mantra in mind. So whenever Badarayana composes a sutra, there is an intention of revealing the meaning of a certain mantra. So each sutra has a certain mantra as the subject matter. So that is called Vishaya. And every sutra has a Vishaya. Why is that mantra taken up for discussion? Because there is a doubt. There is samshaya. Where there is samshaya, then alone that discussion is needed. Where the Shruti texts are very clear, there is no need to discuss them here. There are what we call spashta. So spashta brahmalinga vakya. Those are vakyas or statements which are very clear in what they say. In which case there is no doubt, and so no need to discuss them. Tattvamasi is very clear. Aham Brahmasmi is very clear. You need not bring here for discussion. But then sometimes the word prana is mentioned, and we wonder whether prana means this vital energy or what does it mean. Then we have to see the context. In a given context, the word prana actually means Brahman. So when the word akasha is mentioned, akasha generally would mean space. We wonder whether it is space that is intended in the Upanishad or something else. Then the Brahma Sutra will reveal that it is Brahman which is intended. So even though the word used is akasha, it means Brahman. So these vakyas are not spashta. Akasha has a commonly known meaning which is space. But what Upanishad there means is Brahman. Prana has a commonly known meaning which is vital energy. What Upanishad means there is Brahman. Aditya. So some of these words are used which have a common meaning. And if we read those texts, we might interpret that Akasha is the very source of all the world, where the world is sustained and into which the world goes back. Says no, Akasha there means Brahman and not space. So where this Pashyata is not there, where the doubt can be created in our mind, then those mantras are taken up for discussion. So wherever samshaya is there, So wherever samshaya or doubt is possible, that vakya of the Upanishads become vishaya or the subject matter of discussion. Whenever samshaya is there, there are always going to be two opposite points of view. So one is called pratipaksha. Samshaya, vishaya, pratipaksha, purvapaksha. Purvapaksha means the view of the opponent. So opponent's view will be there, purvapaksha is there, which is first presented, and then uttara is presented, the answer is presented, the view that the doubt is resolved, or the view is refuted, and you come to what we call siddhanta or conclusion. So this is called nyaya, as we'll see. Nyaya has these 5 aspects. That there is a doubt, then there is subject matter, then there is the point of view of the opponent, and then the point of view of the siddhanti, and finally the conclusion. This is called the nyaya having 5 avayavas. So this is a grantha which is all based on this kind of nyaya. And you'll find that in every sutra, different mantras, particular mantras are taken up for discussion. So this is called Brahma Sutra, meaning the text which discusses the various mantras of Upanishads, of which the vishaya or the subject matter is Brahman. Sometimes suchanat sutram, because that sutra means suchanat, that which suggests, so that which suggests, or of which the subject matter is Brahman, therefore always called Brahma Sutra. And this text consists of 4 chapters. So Brahma Sutra consists of 4 chapters. It's called Adhyaya. Each chapter is called Adhyaya. So text is divided in 4 chapters. What is discussed in the first chapter? First chapter is called Samanvaya Adhyaya. Samanvaya. Samanvaya means that the Upanishads are all consistent in what they reveal. That Brahma is the subject matter of all the Upanishads. In that they are consistent. That there is no contradiction in the Upanishads. This is what is established in the first Adhyaya of the first chapter. It is called Samanvaya Adhyaya. So Jiva Brahma Aikyam. The first chapter of the Brahma Sutra establishes this fact. Here it's all logically established. Upanishads reveal, but Brahma Sutra logically establishes based on the statement of Upanishad in the first chapter that what the Upanishads seek to reveal is Jiva Brahmaikyam, identity between Jiva and Brahma. And that in this they are consistent. There is no inconsistency. This is called Samanvaya Adhyaya. But then many people do not agree with this view of life. There are Sankhyas who say that we said Brahman is the cause of creation. Sankhya say no, the matter is the cause of creation. The whole universe is created from matter. Matter is different and consciousness is different. Then the individual is a conscious being, he doesn't create anything. Well, then what creates the universe is called pradhanam or matter. And therefore they present before us 2 principles or 2 realities, Purusha and Prakriti, or spirit and matter. They are separate from each other. So this is what they say. And in support of this position of theirs, they present so many mantras of the Upanishads also, trying to justify their positions. So there is a virodha. There are so many other people who contradict. First of all, we ourselves had to understand what the Upanishads mean, and that Jiva Brahma Aikya is the Tatparya of Upanishad. That is what the first chapter establishes. But there are other schools of philosophy which differ from this, or which contradict our opinion. Like the Sankhya, the Yoga, the Vaisheshika, the Mimamsaka, the Nayayikas, the Bauddhas, the Jainas, all of them have their own opinion about the nature of reality, nature of God. So all of those views which oppose the view of the Vedanta, all of them are taken up for discussion and shown how where there is a defect or a flaw in their thinking, that we analyze our own thinking and show where the flaw is, and thus establish that Jiva Brahmaikya alone is the proper and the reasonable principle. So second chapter is called Avirodha Adhyaya, where it is established that there is no virodha. In spite of what the schools of thought have to say, in fact, there is no virodha or contradiction to what the Upanishads say. This is called Avirodha-adhyaya. Third chapter is called Sadhana-adhyaya, where different sadhanas, different forms of meditations which are discussed in Upanishads, all of them are also brought up there for discussion. And fourth is called the phala, or the result. Two kinds of results are there. One is krama mukti, other is the sadhya mukti. So krama mukti also is discussed there as to those who worship or meditated upon Saguna Brahma, how they leave this body and go to Brahmaloka. Those people who did not meditate to that extent, they go to heavens. Those people who did not perform meditation, they go to Pitraloka. Those fellows who did not do anything, they go to Adhayonis. So different gatis are discussed there in the phala. And also Jivan Mukti, those who have the knowledge of the identity of Jivan Brahma, they become liberated even while living. They are called Jivan Muktaha. So fourth chapter discusses this phalam, or the result of this knowledge. And this is how the fourth chapter of the Brahma Sutras are. Because Chatushpat, Brahma is supposed to be Chatushpat, meaning four padas. So this also has these four chapters. And every chapter also has 4 quarters again. So there are 4 chapters which this text consists of. Each chapter also consists of 4 quarters or padas. And each quarter consists of sections or topics, which is called Adhikaranam. So there are some 190 odd, 191 different topics or Adhikaranas. There are supposed to be 555 sutras or the aphorisms, which are divided into 191 topics or sections. So sometimes a topic or a section called Adhikaranam consists of one sutra. Sometimes it consists of 5, 6, 10 and so forth. And so each topic, this takes a particular mantra for discussion, and there will be one or more sutras. So included in the sutras is given by Shankaracharya, and then alone it would be possible for us to understand the sutras. So the sutra and bhashya. Whenever we say, so Shankaracharya is very fondly called Bhashyakara. Bhashyakara means one who has written Bhashya on Brahma Sutra. Shankaracharya has written other Bhashyas also, like Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita. So Shankaracharya has written Bhashyas on the Prasthanatrayi, but when we say Bhashyakara, it means Brahma Sutra Bhashyakara, because that's the most important Bhashya. Of course Upanishad Bhashyas are important, Bhagavad Gita Bhashya is important for Tatparya, but Brahma Sutra Bhashya is the most important because it gives the Tatparya or the purport of the Upanishads. And so, had Shankaracharya not written this Bhashya, the sutras would have been almost become, for us, they would have been something that would have been mysterious. We would never have been able to understand what the Sutrakara actually intended. So we have the Bhashya. And upon the Bhashya itself is not easy for common people to understand. And therefore, there are other commentators who have written commentaries on Bhashya. Several commentaries are available. Of them, the text that you have has 3 principal commentaries. One is called Bhashya Ratna Prabha. Bhashya itself is Ratna, or a gem, or a precious stone, and Prabha means Kanti. So that is a commentary which brings out the light, or the glamour, or the glitter of that Bhashya, which is Ratna. So it's called Bhashya Ratna Prabha. That's one commentary written by a teacher called Ramananda. There is another famous commentary which is called Bhamati, written by a very great scholar whose name was Vachaspati Mishra. And there is a third comment in the text written by another great disciple of Shankaracharya, Anandagiri, and that's called Nyaya Nirnaya. So these three commentaries is what we find in the text. Upon these commentaries again there are commentaries. Upon this Ratna Prabha again there is a commentary called the Purnanandiya. So Swami Purnananda wrote a commentary, a very elaborate commentary or explanation upon Ratna Prabha also, which is there in the text, except that this Purnananda wrote commentary only for the first 4 sutras. There's another thing I should mention, that of the whole text and of all the 4 chapters and of all the sections, the first 4 sutras are again the most important. Because in the first 4 sutras, each sutra forms an adhikaran or a topic. And these 4 sutras or 4 topics, essentially we get the vision or the idea of the entire principle of Vedanta, Vedanta Siddhanta. So it is very traditional to study 4 sutras. Even if we cannot study the whole text of Brahma Sutra, we would certainly like to study the 4 sutras or Chathsutri. And so that's called Chathsutri, and this Purnananda has written a commentary on Ratna Prabha on these 4 sutras. Not only that, but one great disciple of Shankaracharya, Padmapadacharya, also wrote a commentary on these 4 sutras which is called Panchapadika, a very, very famous commentary. On Panchapadika there is another commentary that is called Vivaranam. On Vivaranam there are many other commentaries, and thus we have commentary upon the commentary upon the commentary, and that's how that shows how profound these things must be. What an amount of attention and thinking must have been needed. Upanishads, of course, we have nothing to say, but when Sutrakara wrote sutras, imagine how profound they must have been. Bhashyakara wrote the Bhashya, which required so many levels of commentaries. Is one thing that there may be a dozen commentaries upon Bhashya. Is another thing that is a commentary upon the commentary. Bhamati has a commentary, Kalpataru. And there again, there is another commentary, Parimala. So Sutra, Bhashya, Bhamati, Kalpataru, Parimala. All the levels of commentary. You must start studying from Parimala to really understand Sutra. Parimala will give us explanation of Kalpataru, which will explain us the Bhamati, which will explain us the Bhashya, which will explain us the Sutra, which will explain us the Upanishad, which will explain us what we are. And that's how it goes. And you must know that every level of commentary is more difficult than the previous level. And so Bhashya is perhaps easy. But when you go to the Bhamadikara, it is very difficult, And when you go to his commentary, even more difficult. And on that commentary, yet more difficult. More grammar, more nyaya, and all sorts of mimams are required. That shows that all of these things are contained in the Bhashya. When we study, we think that we understand everything. But only when someone reveals to us what all is contained in the Bhashya, then we realize what all depth or profundity there is in the Bhashya. So Bhashya of Shankaracharya is called Prasanna Gambhiram. It is very pleasant and enjoyable to read. At the same time, it's extremely profound. And that is a beauty. It is a work of a genius. Even as far as the literary value of the Bhashya is concerned, it is one of the most outstanding compositions in Sanskrit literature. According to us, the most outstanding, because there is no literature which has that depth in it. It is prasannam. Because sometimes these poets become very, very, there may be something profound, but extremely terse. You enjoy reading this. Reading itself is a pleasure, and is so inspiring to read the Bhashya. And of course, it is most profound. So Prasanna Gambhiram is the Bhashya of Shankaracharya. That's the reason why we always worship, or we always pray, offer our salutations to these 2 great teachers, Shankaram Shankaracharyam. Lord Shankara himself took incarnation as Shankaracharya. Who else can do this? Keshavam Badarayanam. And Badarayana is none other than Lord Vishnu. So this is a tradition, that Lord Vishnu reveals something, and then Lord Shankara comes in and gives an exposition, That's how the tradition is. And so here Badarayana has composed the sutras like Lord Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, and again Shankaracharya wrote the Bhashya on that. Or Badarayana is nothing other, is supposed to be the incarnation of Lord Vishnu, and then Lord Shankara came in the form of Shankaracharya and gave us the commentary. Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Again and again we offer our salutations to these 2 gods who are Sutra Krit and Bhashya Krit, who has composed the Sutra and the Bhashya. So thus Brahma Sutra enjoys a very high status in the tradition of Vedanta, and the study of the Prasthanatrayi is essential for every student of Vedanta. And that too, study of the Upanishads will really become meaningful when we study the Brahma Sutra. Otherwise, it doesn't quite reveal itself. And Brahma Sutra is, of course, Shankaracharya is not the only Vyakhya. Shankaracharya is supposed to be one of the first ones who wrote the Bhashya. There must be some other brief commentaries on the Brahma Sutra also, because they are not available to us. But Shankaracharya does mention certain teachers by name. And so, Brahma Sutras commentaries must have been there and must be prevalent also among the scholars. And therefore all kinds of views were prevalent about Brahma Sutra. And therefore it was necessary for Shankaracharya to take up those views and where necessary refute them or correct them. But the most ancient commentary of Brahma Sutra that is available to us is that of Shankaracharya. But subsequent teachers did come and many of them have written commentaries on Brahma Sutra, like Ramanujacharya or Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, and many other teachers also have written commentaries. But then all of them had Shankaracharya's commentary as a basis. Each one of them had studied thoroughly, even how to refute it, because many of them disagreed at in many aspects or many points of Shankaracharya. But directly or indirectly, all of them are deeply influenced by Shankaracharya. And therefore, really Shankaracharya's influence upon the entire culture is next to none other, Even though Ramanujacharya may refute what Shankaracharya says, but still his commentary, his whole thought is highly influenced by Shankaracharya. Even to refute, they had to study what Shankaracharya had to say. And so he has a tremendously deep influence in the entire thought pattern of Hinduism. And so Shankaracharya's contribution to the Indian culture is beyond words. And of course, Badarayana, who is Sutrakara, so both of them are the greatest teachers. Badarayana is a legendary figure, we don't know. Only thing that is available to us is of course the Sutra. He is supposed to be Vedavyasa also, in which case he goes beyond all dimensions. Vedavyasa is the one who composed Mahabharata. He is also credited with having written all the Puranas and also these Brahma Sutras. And so that's why he can be none other than incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Who else can do this? So we look upon them as God alone, because we don't think that it is possible for a human being really to write this kind of thing. So, because more and more you study, more and more you get. That's why it's called Ratnakara. Like ocean. Deeper and deeper you go, more and more jewels you find, and these are all Ratnakara. More and more you study, more and more jewels of thoughts you find. So you wonder, from what level of intellect or perception this must have been revealed, And that shows that perception requires almost sarvajñatvam. One must be omniscient in order to be able to say this. That's why we look upon them as incarnations of God. So the place of Brahma Sutra is one of the most important, next only to Upanishad. The Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita and Brahma Sutra, all of them are looked upon as equally important texts. That's why these three texts form what we call Prasthanam, Vedanta Prasthana, Prasthanatrayi. What we propose to do is to study the first four sutras in course of time, So first four sutras, which Bhashya of Shankaracharya, with the commentary called Ratna Prabha. So Shankaracharya's Bhashya also would be extremely difficult for us to understand, but for this commentary. On that commentary there happens to be a very elaborate commentary called Purnanandiya, which of course we will not study. But Ratna Prabha is what we plan to study as much as we can, because there are many places which are very, very difficult there also. If you find me skipping some sentences, then don't worry about it. Sometimes you find in the Tika or Tippani, what Swami did not read two sentences, then you should know what it is. It is that it contains an idea which requires a lot of other study. Because in order to study Veda, you must study the Vedangas. 6 anga of the Vedas we must study. Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakaranam, Niruktam, Chandaha and Jyotisam. That is, Vyakaranam must be studied. Not only Vyakaranam, but we must also study what we call Nyaya. And we must study Mimamsa. The study of these three texts is absolutely necessary. Mimamsa, which talks about Karma Kanda, that's called Purva Mimamsa. And then Nyaya, which gives us all the logical reasoning. And third is Vyakaranam, which enables us to interpret the meaning of the words and sentences. And each one of these will take a lifetime to study, understand? To study Vyakaranam and study Nyaya and Mimamsa is lifetime work. So we are supposed to be thorough in them. And when you see Shankaracharya's Bhashya, you don't see those things. But when you see commentaries and commentaries upon commentaries, then you see how all of this study of all these texts is already there with all the acharyas. He alone is called acharya, who has a study and who has the insight into all these different branches of knowledge. And certainly we don't have the Mimamsa and Nyaya and Vyakaran. We have only superficial knowledge of these things, and therefore, to that extent, our the dwelling upon this also is going to be influenced by only the limitation of our own knowledge. So where you find us skipping some sentences and things, don't worry about it. It is intentional. And that it contains some ideas which require a lot of application of our time and energy. However, whatever we know for our purpose, I think you will all get, So what we should know, all of that we will be able to get from this. So what we plan to do is to read Ratna Prabha also, and because it is a very beautiful and a brief commentary upon Shankara Bhashya. And this is what we start doing from today. Now, the tradition of teaching is, before we study any text, we must first establish what we call Anubandha Chatushtaya. What is Anubandha Chatushtaya? These four factors are there which bind you with the text. And one is Adhikare. Who is the person? One is Adhikare. Who is the fit student for whom the text is meant? Vishaya. What is subject matter of the text? First will be Vishaya, the subject matter of the text. What is it that the text discusses? That also must be settled. Who is Adhikari? For whom is he, which is the audience that is kept in mind while the author wrote a given book? So Adhikari. Who is the fit student? Who is going to read this? Where are you going to publish your article? In which journal? And then only you decide how to write that article, because who is going to read that journal? Is it a journal for children? Or is it for college students? Or is it for scientists? Is it for scholars? Who is going to read that? And you must address those fellows. If you are writing a book for primary children, well, of course you must write accordingly. The very same subject you write for college students, it will be written in a different manner. So Adhikari also. Adhikari Nirupanam is necessary. And third is, of course, what is the prayojanam? What is the purpose of studying the text? What does it give me if I gain this knowledge? What is the purpose of life that I achieve? And fourth is called sambandha. What's the relationship that Adhikari or I have with this text? Or what's the relationship that the subject matter has with prayojanam? That's called sambandha. These four anubandhas must be first decided before we enter the study of any text. Because we may not be interested in the subject matter. The book may be beautiful. It looks beautiful, very well printed and very well brought out. But it discusses, molecular biology, suppose something like that. Fine. It's nice to know that there is such a text, but I am not interested. The subject matter. And suppose there is subject matter in which I am interested, and then also it may be written for children. There may be Ramayana in which I am interested, Ramayana for children. I am not interested. Or there may be a text that is written in the subject in which I am interested, but then it requires a knowledge and preparation which I do not have, in which case also I may not be suitable to read the text. I may be studying in high school and the text may be written for college students or graduate students, in which case also I would not qualify to study that. So Adhikari Nirupanam also is necessary to know whether I can study. Vishaya, to know whether I am interested or not. Secondly, I am interested, all right, but am I fit to study, and will I benefit from the study or not? And thirdly, prayojanam. All right, what is the purpose that we will achieve by studying this? Am I interested? So this text talks about heavens, Swarga. All right, I am not interested in Swarga, and therefore I won't bother to study it. If you want sun, then you study this. I am not interested. If you want wealth, then you study this. Then I am interested. So it depends on what I am interested in life, what prayojanam I have, and that will determine whether or not I will spend time and energy in studying this. So prayojanam is very important. What is the prayojanam of Upanishads, Brahma Sutra? And then fourth is sambandha. Alright, what do I have to do in order to achieve that purpose? Well, you must do tapasarya for 1500 years, then alone you can achieve. I'm sorry, I cannot do that. Or you must die and then alone you can achieve this. Well, I can't wait that long. So sambandha. Or you must perform this kind of an action and something should happen, then you will get it. You must be able to fly in the sky, then alone you can be mukta. I can't do that. And so sambandha is necessary to know what do I have to do in order to achieve that purpose. What's the relationship between this knowledge and prayojanam, vishaya and prayojanam? That relationship also is necessary to know whether I can do it or not, or whether I am interested in doing it. So, very necessary to establish this Anubandha Chatushtaya. And that is what the Tikakara, first Bhashyakara establishes, Sutrakara establishes. The Anubandha Chatushtaya, these four factors are established in very first sutra. The very first sutra is Athato Brahma Jignasa. Second sutra is Janmad Yasyataha. Third sutra is Shastra Yonitvat. Fourth is Tattu Samanvayat. These four sutras we intend to study. What does the first one say? Athato Brahma Jignasa. Ataha Brahma Jignasa. Ataha becomes Ato. Ataha Brahma Jignasa. Atha means thereafter. Thereafter, Ataha. Therefore, Brahma Jignasa. Brahma Jignasa means an inquiry into Brahman. Jignasa actually means desire to know. So, desire to know about Brahman. Thereafter, therefore, desire to know Brahman. This is a sutra. What is the meaning of Atha? What is Ataha? And what is Brahma Jignasa? Which will take a month of our study, time to understand what these three words mean. And so, Atha means thereafter. Meaning something has happened and thereafter alone this Brahma Sutra can be studied. Or Upanishad must be studied. Thereafter. Means some phenomenon must have happened. Something must have taken place. Which either makes it necessary for me to study or which creates a need to study. So something must have happened by which the need to gain this knowledge is created in the mind of the student. That happening is indicated by Atha. Thereafter, that this person is now fit to study the Upanishad. And what is that? Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti Anantanam. That one has attained or acquired that Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti. Viveka Vairagya Samadhi Shatka Sampatti Mumukshutvam. That Atha indicates what? Adhikaritvam. Alright, suppose I have the adhikaritvam, so what? Ataha. Therefore, whenever this adhikaritvam is there, when that purity of heart is there, a desire to know Brahman or desire to know the truth will definitely arise there. That jignasa or desire for the knowledge will invariably take place whenever the heart is pure. So, one who has purified the heart by karma yoga, by upasana, one who has attained that antahakana shuddhi, that sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, in the heart of that person, the desire to know the truth will definitely arise. So there will be definitely Brahma Jignasa or desire to know Brahman, desire to know the truth. Ataha, therefore there will be a desire. What will you do with that desire? When a desire arises in my heart, I must fulfill it because I cannot live with a desire. Suppose Jignasa, curiosity arises in my mind to know something. Then that curiosity will always bug me. That's what happens to children. They see something, they want to know. Mom, why is it like this? Why is the cloud here? Why did it rain? Until that fellow finds out, he will not be quiet, or his mind will not be settled. That is the nature of jignasa. When a strong desire to know something arises, we have to fulfill desire. Any strong desire has to be fulfilled. And so also the desire to know must be fulfilled. And the desire to know will arise when a proper disposition of mind is. The nature of desire will depend upon the disposition of mind. When the mind has this purity, then the nature of desire will be for knowledge. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. Whenever mind is sattvic, then there is a desire for knowledge. And then knowledge takes place. So one who on account of having led a proper and intelligent life, a devoted life, a life of worship, shraddha, bhakti, so one who has led that kind of dharma mainly. So one whose life is based on dharma, on values, on honesty, on truthfulness, that fellow's heart will be purified. Because that is what the values accomplish. What the values of life accomplish is to purify the heart, to remove the impurities. Like a sculptor who brings out a beautiful form out of a rough stone or rock. He removes all the chips of the unnecessary portions and brings out that very beautiful form. And so also this truthfulness and non-injury and these values will chip off a lot of my unnecessary part of the personality and bring out the beauty from within me. That's what Dharma Shastra does. So having studied the Dharma Shastra and having lived the life of Dharma, then this person's heart is pure and now there is a desire to know. Since there is a desire to know, therefore something must be done in order to satisfy that desire. So how can the desire to know be satisfied? Only when knowledge takes place. How can knowledge take place? Knowledge can take place only when we study what we call pramanam, or the valid means of knowledge. The desire to know Brahman can take place only by the study or contemplation upon Upanishads. And that of course requires that the study must be carried out from a teacher. Tad vijnanartham sadgurumeva vigachet. When a strong desire to know is there, fine. Now all you have to do is to fulfill that desire. Go to the teacher. Shrotriyam brahmanishtam. Go to the teacher and listen to the scriptures from the teacher. So Shravanam. Shravanam means Shastra Vichara. You must study the Upanishads. You must contemplate upon the meaning of the statements of the Upanishads. So Vedanta Vakya, or the statement of the Upanishads, become what we call the Pramanam, upon which we do Vichara, or an inquiry with the help of this Nyaya or Brahma Sutras. And therefore, this is what we call Vichara Grantha. A Grantha is of the nature of inquiry into the meaning of the statements of Upanishads. So, by Vichara alone, knowledge can take place. Knowledge will not take place by miracle. Knowledge will not merely take place by listening to the words. Knowledge will take place when I listen to the words and I deliberate upon the meaning of the words, and then alone the words will create the knowledge in my mind. Any words will create knowledge in my mind only when the meaning of the words is known. And so it is necessary to inquire into the meaning of those words. This is called Vichara. So, Brahma Vichara. Athato, that Jignasa word is replaced by word Vichara. So Athato Brahma Jignasa, we will discuss it anyway, is interpreted as Athato Brahma Vichara. And you must add one word there, Kartavya. Athato Brahma Vichara Kartavya. An inquiry into Brahman or the truth must be performed. Because there is a need for it. Why is there a need for it? Because this person has led a certain kind of life. Life of Dharma, life of Upasana. And therefore, there is a strong desire in his mind to know Brahman. And therefore, that desire must be fulfilled. That desire can be fulfilled only when knowledge of Brahman takes place. And knowledge of Brahman can take place only when we make an inquiry into that. And this is what the first sutra means. So who is, that also reveals that there is a Jignasu, who is Adhikari. And what is the Jignasa? What for does he want to know? Because he is interested in fulfilling the very purpose of life. What is the purpose of life? Purpose of life is to become full and complete. Everyone wants to become complete. Everyone wants to become full. Nobody likes to keep on running after things. I want to stop running. I want to be nivritta. I don't want to remain a seeker for the whole of my life. I want to bring an end to that very seeking. And so that is the purpose. That the moksha becomes the prayojanam. That is also revealed by the first sutra. And of course, what is subject matter? Brahma Jignasa. Brahma is the subject matter, the Vishaya. Who is Adhikari? Atha, one who has fulfilled certain requirements. That sadhana chatushta sampanna is Adhikari. Who is Viveka, Vairagya, Samadhi, Shatka, Sampatti, Mumukshutvam. These fourfold qualifications one who has is the Adhikari or the fit student for this text. So Adhikari also is revealed, Prayojanam also is revealed, subject matter also is revealed. And what do I have to do after gaining this knowledge? Nothing is to be done, because that very knowledge itself is the end. Because the problem is one of ignorance, and so the Brahman is something that is to be known and not something to be achieved. Here the problem is one of ignorance of Brahman, therefore knowledge alone is solution. So Jnanam is the very means as well as the very end. So that's the sambandha here. is Janya Janaka Sambandha, that moksha is something that is created or something that is attained as a result of this knowledge. So this Anubandha Chatushtaya of Vishaya, Adhikari, Prayojanam and Sambandha is revealed by the first sutra, Athato Brahma Jignasa. And that sutra has reference to certain mantras of the Upanishads. Tad Vijignasasva, Tad Brahmeti, Bhugurvai Varunihi, Varunam Pidaram Upasasara, Adhihi Bhagavo Brahmeti, Tagum Hovacha. So this is how the dialogue between Varuna and Bhagu starts. That's what we find in Taittiriya Upanishad. That question of Varuna forms that Adhihi Bhagavo Brahmeti, Tagum Hovacha, Yatova Imani Bhutani Jayante, Yena Jatani Jivanti, Yat Prayanti Abhisambhishanti. Tad Vijignasasva, Tad Brahmeti. Tad Vijignasasva. May you seek to know. That is Brahman from which the whole creation has come about, by which the whole creation is sustained, and to which the whole creation goes back. That is Brahman. May you seek to know that Brahman. So that is Jignasa, Athato Brahma Jignasa. This sutra is based on that mantra of the Upanishad and a few other mantras, like Chandogya Upanishad also has Jignasa Padam. So they form the very Vishaya of the first sutra. So Vishaya. And some Shayas are there, that we will discuss. And this is how the discussion of Brahma Sutra begins. And we'll see tomorrow how it is necessary for Shankaracharya to write a whole introduction to Brahma Sutra before it begins discussion on Sutra. Because you must establish the very need for Brahma Sutra. You must then establish need to study Brahma Sutra. You must establish need to comment upon Brahma Sutra. All these needs must first be established before we can proceed with the study. Not that you start studying without whether it is not necessary. So, first those necessities are established and then the studies commence. And so various questions are raised and answered. In that process, the whole Vedanta Shastra is very beautifully revealed. And this is what Ratna Prabhakara first brings out, then Bhashyakara brings out, then Sutrakara brings out. And this is the way we'll study Ratna Prabha, then Bhashya, and then Sutra. That's the krama or the sequence. And I think we'll start our study from tomorrow, giving an introduction of what Shankaracharya has written in the beginning, and then what Ratna Prabhakara seeks to establish through his own introduction also. Then now the next 5 shlokas of Dakshinamurti is what we chant. And then other 2 verses also. First Purnamada, then 5 shlokas of Dakshinamurti Stotra, and then Shankaram Shankaracharyam and the last verses. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Rahugrasta Divakarendra Sadrisha Maya Samachadarat Sanmatra Karanopasamharato Yobhut Sushupta Puman Ragasvapsamide Prabodha Samaye Yah Pratyavinyayate Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Valya Vishwabhijagrada Vishutata Sarva Svavastha Svabi Vyavruta Svanuvartamana Spurantam Sada Swatmanam Pragati Karoti Hayatam Yo Mudraya Bhadraya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Vishvam Pashyati Karyakarya Swaswami Sambandhataha Shishyacharya Tathaiva Pitruputra Dhyatmana Vedataha
स्वप्ने जागृतिवाय एष पुरुषो माया परिभ्रामितः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये भूरम्भां शरणो निलो परमः मातो हिमांशु पुमान् इत्यादिचराचरात्मकमिदं यस्यैव मूर्त्यष्टकम् नान्यत् किञ्चन विद्यते वृषभाम् यस्मात् परस्माद् विभोः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये सर्वात्मत्वमिति स्फुटीकृतमिदं यस्मादमुष्मिन् स्थले तेनाच्च श्रवणात् तदर्थमननात् ध्यानाच्च सङ्कीर्तनात् सर्वात्मत्वमहाविभूतिसहितं स्यादीश्वरत्वं स्वतः सिद्धेतत्पुनरष्टधा परिणतं चैश्वर्यमव्याहतम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः अशुभानि निराचष्टे तनोति शुभसन्ततिं स्मृतिमात्रेण यत्पुंसां तन्मङ्गलं परम् कल्याणरूपत्वात् नित्यकल्याणसंश्रयात् स्मर्तॄणां वरदत्वाच्च ब्रह्म तन्मङ्गलं विदुः ओङ्कारश्चातशब्दश्च द्वावेतौ ब्रह्मणः पुरा कण्ठं भित्त्वा विनिर्यातौ तस्मान्माङ्गलिकावुभौ ॐ अथ हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणा.
The Bhashya of Shankaracharya upon this Brahma Sutra starts with an introduction. It is famously known as Adhyasa Bhashya. Before starting to comment upon the Brahma Sutras, there is a need to establish that there is a need for Brahma Sutra. Or what is the need for Upanishads? That's the question. What's the need of knowledge? Why do you need knowledge? Because what's the goal of life? Sukha prapti, dukkha nivritti, attainment of happiness and avoiding or elimination of dukkha. That's what one is seeking. There everybody agrees. How to accomplish that purpose? There of course a disagreement is. And there are people who say that you are not happy and therefore happiness is something to be acquired. You are unhappy and therefore unhappiness is something that is to be gotten rid of. This is our experience. So sukha or happiness is something away from me. It has to be acquired. And when you want to acquire something that you don't have, the means to accomplish that is karma or action. So what you are seeking in life is something to be accomplished through action. And therefore, Vedas, what is the purport of Vedas? Purport of Vedas is action. Amnayastu kriyarthatvat anarthakyam atadarthanam. Amnaya or Vedas, the main thrust of the subject matter of Veda is karma. Because karma alone is a means to accomplish something that you do not have. Heavens also is something, if you want to accomplish, you must perform karma. And therefore, Amnaya or the Vedas, the subject matter of Vedas or the purport of the Vedas is in karma, is in action. And therefore, the main function that the Vedas perform for our life is to give us instruction on how to perform action, what to do, and what to avoid. So Vidhi and Nisheda, that is according to them the subject matter of Vedas. And if there are any statements that they are not directly of the nature of Vidhi or instruction or enjoyment, or Nisheda on the nature of Pratisheda, meaning asking us to avoid something. So Vidhi and Nisheda, if there is a statement which is not a direct of this nature, then we say that it's a meaningless statement. Of the Vedas, which are so voluminous, which are these statements of the Vedas which are really important? Those statements which directly tell us what to do and what to avoid. Vidhi and Nisheda. Because that's what man wants to know. He doesn't know the Tindriya Vishaya. He doesn't know what is happiness, what is punya, what is papa, what is dharma, adharma, what is heaven. He doesn't know this, nor can he ever know them. And therefore the only source of knowledge of all these Atindriya Vishaya, all these extra, the objects or the matter which is beyond the sense perception, the only means of knowledge is Vedas. And therefore Vedas can give us the knowledge of what is punya, what is papa. And so punya should be the way of our life, and therefore Vidhi. Papa should be avoided, and therefore Nisheda, because everybody loves happiness. And you can be happy only by what we call punya karma. Everybody wants to avoid unhappiness, and unhappiness will surely come if you indulge into papa karma. And therefore, if you want happiness and want to avoid unhappiness, you must do punya karma and avoid papa. So Vidhi as to how to do punya karma, or dharma it is called, and Nisheda, how you must avoid adharma. Dharma Shastra. So those statements of Vedas which directly give us instruction on dharma and adharma, or Vidhi and Nisheda, are the most main sentences of Vedas. Restful statements are anarthakyam, meaningless, unless they indirectly help us. So either directly or indirectly, a statement of the Vedas must relate to Vidhi or Nisheda. Therefore, the statements are meaningful. If statements do not relate to them, they are meaningless statements. Of course, Vedas cannot have any meaningless statement, because every word of Veda is considered to be pramanam by the people who are traditional. And therefore, all the statements of the Vedas are shown by the Mimamsakas as either directly pertaining to Vidhi Nisheda or indirectly pertaining to Vidhi Nisheda, and they evolved a very elaborate and sophisticated method of analysis to show how every statement is related. But what is the purport of Vedas? Kriyarthatvat, that kriya or action is what the Vedas teach us. But then what's the role of knowledge? Knowledge is only in as far as it helps us how to perform the action. Because to perform an action, you must have knowledge. How can you otherwise do anything? And therefore, there is of course knowledge in Vedas, but the knowledge of Vidhi Nisheda is to enable us to perform the action, so that we can accomplish the purpose of our life. This is the main contention. So, Jnanam or knowledge is a means to karma. This is how their proposition is. Then what about the Upanishads? What about what we call the Jnana Kanda? There is no injunction there. In Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, these are simply statements of facts. These are not of the nature of instruction. You are Brahman or you are limitless. It doesn't tell us to do something. So statements of Upanishads are not of the nature of instruction. They are of the nature of merely statements of fact. So where do you place these statements? They are not in any way related to what we call Vidhi or Nisheda. This anarthakyam, they are meaningless statements. Or we can say that they are arthavada. They are simply praising this fellow, that you are Brahman. So he feels good. You are Indra and you are Brahman, you are Ishvara. When you are told that, you feel good. So that is for the samskara of this karta, for this agent of action, so that when he performs the action, it will be a more efficacious performance. So according to them, Upanishads fall in the category of what they call arthavada. Arthavada means a statement which indirectly is related to Vidhi and not directly. Because when you praise something, there is automatically a desire to do that. And when you condemn something, then automatically you want to avoid that. So you do not sometimes directly tell us what to do and what not to do. But then you say, well, if you go to school, you see your uncle, he has an air-conditioned office, and he has 3 cars, and he has this, that, and so on. That's what happens when you go to school. You know what happens when you don't go to school? You see that fellow on the road, he's pulling a cart, that's what happens when you don't go to school. We don't say you go to school, but we praise the result of going to school, and that is how that person is enthused or inspired or encouraged to go to school. Because everybody is interested in karma phala. So such statements, which do not directly are of the nature of vidhi and nisheda or instruction. Sometimes instruction does not work. When instruction you feel that doesn't work, then you indirectly give instruction. There are suggestions. And so, this is called arthavada, stuti and ninda. Psychology is involved here also because every time people will resist, if you keep on giving them instruction. So, arthavada. So, that is why the whole Upanishad, according to them, falls in the category of arthavada. Indirectly suggesting that one should perform karma. And so this is the main contention of Mimamsakas and this Vedanta. These are the great contenders of the Vedantas. So first of all you must establish that Upanishad or knowledge is the purport of the Vedas and not karma. And so we ask them, what is it that the man is seeking? We agree, Sukha Prapte, Dukkha Nivritte. No doubt, one wants to attain happiness, one wants to avoid unhappiness. Pleasure, and one wants to gain pain, one wants to avoid. But then we ask him the question, what is the nature of happiness that one wants? What's the nature of happiness that one wants? How much happiness do you want? Are you going to be satisfied by a limited amount of happiness? In this world you are not satisfied in spite of what all you have gained, because you have discovered that all the objects of enjoyment are all temporary, and therefore the enjoyment that you gain out of them is also temporary. And therefore you are not satisfied. That's the reason why we find ourselves seeking one thing after the other in our life. That shows that human beings cannot be satisfied with limited happiness. Happiness that is limited in time, available only for a period of time and not otherwise, I cannot be satisfied with. I may have to settle for it. That's a different thing. In our life we settle for a lot of things because we don't know any better or we don't know how to get something better. But if given the freedom, I certainly would not want to settle for anything less than happiness which is not limited in time. I want to be happy at all times. Nor do I want my happiness to be limited in place, that I want to be happy in one place and not in another place. I want to be happy in all the places. Under all situations I want to be happy. I want to be happy at all the times, at all the places, under all the situations. Meaning the happiness that I am seeking is that which must be which must be free from the limitations of time, place and conditions. Deshakala vastu paricheda shunyam sukham. This is what I am seeking. Which means that you are seeking happiness that is not limited, limitless happiness you are seeking. So limitless and happiness only are the two words of the same thing. You are seeking to be limitless. And ask anybody, whether he is a child or a young man or an old man, he is illiterate or he is highly educated. This is common. It doesn't require our education. One need not be educated. It is not the person who is educated in the scriptures who wants a limitless happiness and the fellow who has had no exposure wants to settle for less. No. That's